Rocking Mr. E. I break from our common exchange to make this video because you seem to be losing track of the things that you're saying. I originally started leaving comments because of the response that you gave to you, James, 1978's response to you. The first comment that I gave was the question, is citing feminist leaders not the equivalent of citing atheist leaders? And you never did address that point. The point I'm making here is that you, James 1978, says that you are citing paranoid conspiracy theories and that you don't properly differentiate your targets. You make feminists to be all feminists. You make MRAs to be all men. And you create this environment that's either for you or against you. The people who understand you, and on the other side, the people who oppose you. There's no room in the middle. People who just have a difference of opinion. People who might have the same goals as you, but employ different tactics. People who might just want a different way to phrase, a different way to frame the debate. So I ask, what about sex positives? What about do-it-yourself third waivers? The only response I ever got from you on do-it-yourself third waivers is that you don't know anything about them. They're too obscure for you to find anything on the internet. And that's bullshit. The information is out there. And if you want to claim to be an expert on all things feminism, then you are self-poning, sitting there saying something doesn't count because it's too obscure for you to know. That means you don't know your subject matter. You don't know feminism inside and out. You just know what's most quotable and what most fits into your conspiracy theory. And that's confirmational bias. You accuse me of having a bias because I don't buy all of your arguments. You are employing a confirmational bias to build the very core of your arguments. Now, the one thing you criticize me for, saying that I have a bias, is where I'm willing to give you some leeway, that the 1 in 4 women are raped statistic isn't valid. I understand. I don't challenge that. But you want to take it a step further to say that it is an intentional conspiratorial lie that has been fabricated so that women can get together and take away our rights. And that's not what the evidence you cited in your blog suggests. The evidence wasn't fabricated, it was exaggerated. It has then become a meme that people continue to spout because they aren't critical enough of the information that they have available. But that's as far as you can take it. You want to take it farther than that, into the realm of the invisible. That the Toronto Slut Walk was a way for women to trample over men's rights based on the lie that 1 in 4 women are raped. No! It was women attempting to make a statement for themselves, for their own rights, for what their place in society is. It had nothing to do with men, except for the fact that there was a woman who was actually raped. That's not a lie. That's not a conspiracy. That wasn't made up. And pointing that out isn't a bias. Now, I want to go on to say that a big part of your argument is that feminists are leftists. Even if I assume that this is true, even if I grant you this for the sake of argument, so what? So fucking what? They have the right to be leftists if they want. But the thing is, you're only focusing on leftist feminists because they're the only people that fit your confirmational bias. You then say anyone else doesn't count. They're not authentic feminists, they're marginalized, or they don't count for any other reason that you will see fit to make up. So, here's a pretty good example of that happening. You say, take the recent slut walks. No men would be allowed to march en masse like that with police protection. It's a privilege. I go on to say, how about the Million Man March in Washington? Okay? Now, the National Park Service, who gave them police protection during their march, they estimated that it was only about 40,000 men. But even if we go with this most conservative estimate, that's still a huge number of men marching en masse for their rights as men. You go on to say, it's not comparable to feminism. Well, okay, I didn't say it was. I'm just saying that it fits exactly the point that you said, exactly the thing you said that couldn't happen. That men couldn't march en masse with police protection. I've given you an example of when that happens. And you go on just to spin it in another direction. But let's approach this issue of only liberal feminists being the ones who have the influence and the power. Okay, you think that you're going to do more to dislodge that by wrapping everything up together and saying all feminists are the problem, rather than cutting that community down the middle and finding feminists who you can have common ground with. You don't want to do that work. You don't want to identify who those people are. You don't want to set up those networks and have a positive working relationship with feminists who are sensitive to the issues you're addressing. Heck, along the way, you might even create some allies. You might get women who just didn't see things your way, but now they will because you're willing to give them the chance. Except that you're not, because you're already establishing this confirmational bias saying that if such women exist, they're not really feminists. Now let's put this in context of your obsession with taking down the state. One of the big points that Hugh James 1978 hit you on, his reasoning being the state is nothing but us, just like corporations are nothing but us. But if you are attempting to weaken the state, then we are in a position that becomes increasingly democratic and relies on increasing egalitarian among the population to keep from becoming a tyranny. In order for that to happen, you have to follow one of the most basic principles of democracy, which is everyone has to lobby for their own interests. And I don't say rights, and I do that on purpose. You see, the thing is, I can't expect that women out there in the world are going to be lobbying for my interests. It's not my women, not friends of mine who are women who are going to find me a loving wife. I'm the one who has to do that. They're not going to be the ones finding me jobs. I have to do that. In a society where the state has less power, it is more incumbent upon us to lobby for our own interests. That means it's a good thing for men's activists to be in the world, but it's also a good thing for feminists to be in the world because you, RockingMrE, are not going to go out there and lobby for the things that women need, not just their rights, but also their interests, so that they can have happy, productive, and independent lives. In order for your no-state world to make any sense, in order for it to function, feminism has to be a part of the equation, but you're already taking it out by saying that they're the enemy. Once we get rid of the state, or once it's diminished, we're going to be in a position where feminism is necessary. But in order for us to get there, we have to already have a brand of feminism that is sympathetic to what it is that you and I need as men advocating for our own interests. So the two views that you hold are mutually incompatible, but you don't see it that way because you've already labeled feminists as the enemy. So anyone who doesn't fit into that mold that you have of what it means to be a feminist, you'll just arbitrarily discard. You'll arbitrarily say they don't have enough followers, they don't have enough influence, they don't have enough subscribers to count. But that doesn't make them go away, because we're not talking about shadowy corporations, we're not talking about an abstract entity like the state. We're talking about real people. We're talking about women who you and I know, women we can have conversations with, women we can come to mutual understandings with, women who we can get to respect what it is our rights and our interests are as men. But you've already closed the door to these conversations. Now, That's why I say feminism can't betray men. What can betray men is men who aren't interested in their own rights. But that's mutually exclusive from being a man who's interested in the rights of women. In fact, the very terminology is opposed by many on both sides, the men's rights and women's rights movements, who feel that it is more important to be a student of humanity. And this falls under the subset, the heading of the self-actualized individual. But in order to self-actualize, you have to be pushing for your own interests. And this takes us right back to what I'm saying previously. Men have to push for their interests, and women have to push for theirs. And that justifies feminism. The worldview that you hold, that we need to be diminishing or getting rid of the state, otherwise we won't be able to be self-actualized individuals, still calls for feminism as a necessary construct, a necessary part of the social equation. Finally, you keep citing yourself as a source. The fact, like I said, that you don't know what third wave do-it-yourselfers are really undermines your credibility. And you respond to me by saying, don't worry about that. I know I'm an expert. I know what I'm talking about. Haven't you even read my blog? When you're in the position of being accused of paranoia, citing yourself really doesn't do you any good. And see, here's the thing. You want to pass yourself off as an expert on all things feminine, all things feministic, and all things masculine, all things MRA. But you're not. You're just a member of the community. And in order for you to get beyond the little circle that you have, in order for you to do actual good, you need to have appeal outside of the hardcore community that already agrees with you anyway. Don't preach to the choir. Learn how to engage and accept actual criticism. That's what Hugh James 1978 is giving you. That's what I'm giving you. Now, it doesn't mean that we have to play nice. It doesn't mean that we have to hug at the end. But you do have to actually address the criticism. Just referring people to go check out your blog, and if they can't get your point or still disagree with you, then their bias is showing. My advice to you is, learn what solid, honest criticism is and how to deal with it.